striking qualities, breath, flesh, blood, to a structure made of pine board, shingle, and stone. Jess truly believed that you could put the past behind you. She had not been back to the cottage in 16 years.
Your grandmother left you some property? I thought your grandmother was still alive.
Russ was chopping mushrooms now, using a cleaver so that the halves fell neatly apart. No, she died. Last month. Jess paused, momentarily flustered that she had never mentioned it to Russ.
I'm sorry, Russ said. Had she been sick?
She was old. Jess realized she didn't know exactly how old her grandmother had been. She was born in 1902. Jess did the math in her head. If she were still alive, she would have just turned 94. She lived in a nursing home, Jess said. They told me she died in her sleep.
So tell me about the house,
Russ said. It's just a summer cottage. It's been in the family for a long time. I guess she thought my mother didn't want it, so she left it to me.
What are you going to do with it?
Sell it. Russ turned back to the cutting board, starting to chop the green and red peppers, seeming to let the subject drop. Had she really gotten off so easily? She was feeling guilty that she hadn't invited him, especially since Russ was always on the scout for new locales for the magazine. Jess knew they were getting to that point where it was almost expected that they would include each other in their plans. That was the point when Jess, in the past, had tended to bolt. Well, it was barely worth mentioning. Such a short trip. She would be there and back over a long weekend, and the place would be sold. How's the piece on the Connecticut farmhouse coming? She asked, hoping to change the subject.
Country kitchen, Connecticut, he said. Would you believe they collect hand-painted duckies?
That hardly sounds like architectural home. Duckies.
Very expensive, very tasteful duckies. But they have a $10 million view of the Long Island Sound. Makes for a great photo shoot.
Russ was passionate about his work at Architectural Home.
Okay, so now tell me all about this cottage in Michigan, Russ said. I didn't know people did cottages in Michigan. Isn't that a Maine kind of thing?
Jess pictured the big old gabled cottage, perched up on a bluff above a clear blue Michigan lake. It had been her grandmother's summer home for over 90 years. At one time in her life, it had been Jess's favorite place on the face of the earth. It looks out over a spot called Hemingway Point. They say Hemingway used to fish there when he was young.
You've been there before?
Every summer, she said, until my mother couldn't make me go anymore. Then, I just...
Just what?
Just, didn't want to go there anymore. She hoped Russ couldn't hear the catch in her throat, but he was concentrating on stirring the sauce and seemed to let the subject drop. A few minutes later, they were seated across from one another at Jess's battered kitchen table, the aroma of Russ's fresh marinara sauce filling the room. Russ stabbed a fork full of spaghetti, expertly wrapping it around his fork so that it neatly tucked into his mouth.
It's like a little cabin?
Jess should have known he wouldn't let it go that easily. It's actually kind of big, she said.
Big?
9 bedrooms? She could feel the faint heat of embarrassment rising along her cheekbones. Her apartment in Fort Washington was a ratty 6th-floor walk-up in a marginal neighborhood. Its only redeeming feature was the tiny sliver of a view.
You've just inherited a 9-bedroom cottage on a lake across from Hemingway Point. And you didn't even tell me?
Jess nodded miserably, sorry that she had piqued his interest.
So what's it like, anyway?
Jess could hear a note of professional interest creep into his voice. Russ was a house junkie, always on the lookout for new locales for the magazine. It's very old, probably falling apart by now, Jess said. She looked away from Russ out the window.
I'd love to see it,
Russ said. He was smiling at her, eager, interested. She should be happy. She had been telling herself recently that she might be in love with him. Do you want to come with me? She said, regretting it as soon as she...